Welcome to the Gavel. I am Terry Kumi. Well, we do know now that the National Assembly will be resuming from its annual recess on the 24th of September, as against the initial adjourned date of 17th September. This was conveyed in a statement by the spokesman of the House, quoting the clerk of the House. Oversight functions continue in the meantime, and that's where we begin today. The House of Representatives Committee on Health is insisting that public hospitals in Nigeria must render services that are commensurate with the spending of government. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Amos Magaji, stated this during a tour of the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital here in Abuja. Meanwhile, back in the National Assembly, the House Committee on Public Accounts continues to sit. And within a week, they criticized the Bureau for Public Enterprise for allegedly squandering 10 billion naira on registering two companies for the Nigerian Postal Service, and similarly directed the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board as well as the Investment and Security Tribunal to pay over 3 billion naira and over 6 billion naira respectively into the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation for defaulting in remittance. Here's a detailed report.
The House Committee on Health was at the University of Abuja Teaching Hospital as part of their oversight function. Led by the Chief Medical Director of the teaching hospital, the lawmakers toured some of the recently completed projects in the hospital.
So we're trained on this.
Some of the infrastructure include the newly built mental health building and the cardiovascular research center. Back in the conference room, the Chief Medical Director of the teaching hospital made some requests.
Our most critical need is an MRI machine. I do not want to speak to the justification, but where we have consultant radiologists, professors, consultant pediatric surgeons, consultant neurosurgeons, and we're on the corridor of road traffic accidents. Without an MRI, our activities will be incomplete.
The chairman of the committee emphasizes the need for government to have value for money spent on public hospitals.
None of us seated here, if this hospital belongs to your father and you inherit it, that you will not make profit. So why are we not breaking even? Billions are being budgeted to each hospital every year. I don't think we are seeing value for money.
Nigeria's budget for the health sector in 2023 was over 1.2 trillion naira. And according to data from the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, the capital allocation for the ministry increased by 139.78% from 86.49 billion naira in 2018 to 207.4 billion naira in 2022. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts has criticized the Bureau for Public Enterprise, BPE, for allegedly squandering 10 billion naira on registering two companies for the Nigeria Postal Service, which folded up just a year after launch. Committee Chairman Honorable Bamidele Salam expressed disbelief that 10.4 billion naira was spent on registering NIPOST Transport and Logistics Limited and NIPOST Property, only for them to cease operations in May of 2024, barely a year after their May 2023 launch. BPE's head of finance and accounts, Imam Riwan, defended the expenditure, stating that 423 million naira was used for registration and preparatory activities, while 400 million naira was allocated to the BPE for groundwork.
They actually took off in what year?
2020, last year. They took off.
They took off 2023?
Yes. They were registered 2022, they took off 2023. And then they were delisted.
And today, 2024, those corporations have been delisted. They are no longer in existence.
No longer in existence.
The corporations we spent 10 billion naira to give birth to are no longer in existence 1 year after.
No, what happened was that they actually took off, and the money they spent, everything is on page 4. Sorry,
the money that who spent?
Each of the companies. So the money they spent.
No, I'm just asking an introductory question.
Yes, sir.
The purpose of that money is to form those corporations.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Are the corporations alive as we speak, as you and I speak?
No, sir.
Yes.
Due to presidential directive, they were delisted this year, but not all the monies was spent.
The committee questioned the justification for spending government funds before release and demanded relevant approvals, as well as directing BPE's Director General Ayodeji Igbeleyi to appear before the committee with all relevant documents.
Everyone, the man to my immediate right.
Meanwhile, at another hearing, the Public Accounts Committee directed the Joint Admission and Matriculations Board, JAMB, and the Investment and Security Tribunal to pay into the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation about 3.457 billion naira and 6.327 million naira respectively within 30 days and tender evidence of payment before the committee. Chairman of the committee, Honorable Bamidele Salam, gave the ruling after listening to the head of monitoring and evaluation of the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, Bello Aliyu Gumare, who informed the committee that JAMB was defaulting in his remittance, remitting only 25% of his IGR instead of 50%.
The Minister of Finance writes them officially to inform them. And this is the letter that this agency forward to us. That is, assuming we have completed their liability for 50%, they will now write to us and now say, oh, please, Fiscal Responsibility Commission, the Honourable Minister of Finance has waived this rule to be 25% in our favour because of our peculiarities. And this will now put into consideration. Unfortunately for JAM, no such letter has been submitted to us. So we still continue to now treat them based on this existing law that we have.
But the Director of Finance and Accounts of JAM, Muftau Bello, who represented the registrar, said the board explained the reason for the 25% remittance.
Where we have difference is that they want to move the board to 50% of revenue. As an organization in 2019, because of our commitment to revenue remittance, the federal government reduced cost of administration from 5,000 to 3,500 for the benefits of all Nigerians. We have been following with passion the remittances of 25% and at least 25% on yearly basis. But the fiscal responsibility, and we are in the educational sector, we have not increased any of our charges by 1 kobo in the last 8 years. Rather, we reduced our registration fee from 5,000 to 3,500, which is 30% reduction of our revenue. And we have appealed the Accountant General, the Budget Office of Nigeria, and all other offices. They always give us the concession to operate on 25% of remittances.
In a similar development, the committee directed the Investment and Security Tribunal to immediately recover and pay into government accounts taxes not deducted from 5 contractors and the accompanying fine, among other liabilities standing against them.
Honorable Chairman, we looked at it carefully, even though letter had been written to them to do it. But I think we are under obligation to ensure getting them. Did you get it? We need to have deducted it before concluding the transaction. So either way, we must pay the tax. If this tax were to be paid in, which year was that, 2019? 2020. Was it 2020? This is 2024. So it's not only paying the amount, you're also going to pay with interest to government. And we're going to apply the necessary consequences for failure to deduct and remit taxes as provided for by extant financial regulations. So we rule on that against you, and we're giving you up to 1 week to make the remittance and provide the evidence of the remittance.
Well, we caught up with Honorable Bamidele Salam for an exclusive look into the challenges of looking into public accounts. Take a listen.
The work of the Public Account Committee is a very enormous work, very challenging. And upon assumption of office in the month of October of last year, the first thing that we did was to unveil the committee by launching a strategic plan of action to ensure that we move faster, we move in a more efficient and effective manner. And one of the major problems that we inherited was in the backlog of reports that the Auditor General's office ought to have submitted to Parliament, which had not been submitted. One of the reasons why that happened also was the non-appointment of a substantive Auditor General by the President for more than 1 year. For reasons inexplicable, the former President refused to appoint an Auditor General, and we had to engage on an advocacy together with my Senate counterpart, and we got the President to approve the appointment of a substantive Auditor General for the Federation, which is a major hurdle forward for us. And also working together with the Auditor General for the Federation and other stakeholders, the Auditor General for the Federation was able to submit the 2020 Auditor General's report, and also gave a commitment to submit 2021 and 2022 before the end of 2024. As we speak, the Auditor General's office has submitted a part of the 2021 auditor's report. Now, the submission of the report is just one step. The other step is now the interrogation of the issues in the report. Several issues, violation of financial regulations, impunity in spending of money, lack of accountability, lack of transparency, and so many other issues. And it will bother you to know that from my own experience, chairing this committee, almost 50 to 60% of monies budgeted for specific purposes are either wasted, misapplied, or misappropriated. They're either wasted, they're either misapplied, or misappropriated. And the only way we can have results is to make sure that there are consequences for these actions. When a wrong is, perpetrated without anyone being held accountable, without anyone, being made to bear the brunt of the law, there is a tendency for people to continue in that way. Now, on our own part, we are almost done with the Constitution of 2019 report. We also had the COVID-19 expenditure investigation, which was a major investigation of the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts, where we have laid the report before the House, awaiting the consideration of the House. Now, in this area too, you will discover a lot of infractions. Monies meant either to combat the COVID-19 pandemic itself or to solve the problems occasioned by the pandemic, such as the economic downturn and reflate the economy, were wasted by many ministry departments and agencies. There are instances where agencies got funds allocated as COVID-19 intervention funds, did not use the money, and kept the money in their account without returning the money back to government coffers as required by law. There are instances where monies meant for specific projects were diverted to other purposes for which budgetary allocations have been made in the Appropriation Act, either in the previous years or in subsequent years following the COVID-19 intervention. We also have the issue of remitter, and that's another very, very major investigation by this committee, investigating allegation of revenue leakages through the remitter platform. A lot of discoveries have been made on these two, and by the time the House resumes, we are laying the report before the House for its consideration. There are instances where, monies were paid into government account, passes through the remitter platform, and never got to the designated bank account in the Central Bank of Nigeria. And I'm talking about monies running into hundreds of billions of naira. Sometimes the monies go from remitter, and rather than being tracked into the CBN account, goes into some private account. These are some of the mind-boggling discoveries, that we have made in the, on the remitter, revenue leakages investigation. So many other, things. One of the challenges that we've been having as a committee is in the area of the lack of cooperation from MDAs. Many MDAs will decide to shun invitation. They will decide to refuse to respond to the request for documents, even though the Constitution empowers the National Assembly to request and obtain documents from any person anywhere in Nigeria. There are instances where for weeks running, months running, you write letters repeatedly to agencies of government asking them to submit documents to appear before the committee, and then they do not do this. And we do not take lightly some of these things. In a few instances which we have covered, we have declared some CEOs of MDs as being in contempt of Parliament and ordered them to appear. Some have done. For those who have not done, we still have them, on our tracker.
This week on The Breakdown, the Executive Director of the Policy and Legal Advocacy Center, PLAC, speaks on the forthcoming Edo governorship election and expectations from the civil society situation room.
I think that as the Edo election holds, it's important that stakeholders are able to understand the constitutional responsibilities thrust on them. Of course, from civil society, the civil society situation room will be observing the Edo elections. We will be giving reports. We will be very honest in saying things as they are. I think you also have INEC itself. INEC's credibility with recent elections has not been commendable, and so again, I can only say that the expectation of Nigerians is that INEC sees the important need of carrying out its responsibilities in a responsible and credible manner. And if things were to go wrong with Edo, it will further undermine the already bad image that INEC has with respect to fair conduct of elections in this country. And I think that there's only so far that you can go before it collapses when you do not conduct elections properly. The security services have, there's a major concern. Already some of the parties are accusing the police of partisanship. I think that the police needs to realize that it has a critical role to play in elections, and that politicians cannot continue to be worried about whether the police would be non-partisan in elections. But certainly we will all be observing everyone, including even ourselves as civil society, to ensure that we're able to do what is needed to be done. And where the police displays partisanship, we will say so. And certainly the hope is that the police knows that it's going to be under scrutiny and could be a major problem if it doesn't do its work well. I think the whole essence of peace accord, and this is an accord process led by the National Peace Committee, headed by General Abdul Salami Abubakar and Bishop Matthew Kuka. It's become quite symbolic with respect to elections, and even though you have cases of violence that happens sometimes with elections, the commitments by parties to participate peacefully in elections is always very important. So it is sad to see reports of some of the key political parties boycotting the signing of the accord. It doesn't augur well for our democracy. I think that civil society has put in a lot of work to come this far. The National Peace Committee has continued to do a lot of work to ensure that peace is promoted during elections. So when you see major parties pull out of signing the accord, occasioned, of course, by their own allegations of partisanship against some of the election stakeholders, including the police, and perhaps possible partisanship against INEC officials, which is a cause for concern. But certainly the inability of a peace accord to be signed by all of the relevant parties is a major concern for the elections. The other issue is the issue of debates. We all watched the recent debates between Kamala Harris and Trump in the US elections, and for a lot of us it was very enlightening and quite a good experience watching candidates understand that they have some accountability to citizens, to speak to citizens. I think that we need to get to the point in this country where debate is compulsory, where candidates understand that they have to speak to the people and know that a debate is an important avenue to gain support. The suggestion about a boycott of debates is that those who are boycotting the debates perhaps do not think that they need the people to win an election, and that again goes to the question of the quality of our elections, which would be sad.
On Constituency Focus this week, we hear from Honorable Afamogene, who will represent Ogbaru Federal Constituency in Anambra State.
As somebody representing Ogbaru Federal Constituency, which is actually a riverine community, Ogbaru is made up of 15 indigenous communities, and we lie on the banks of the great river Niger. My people are predominantly farmers of yam, cassava, vegetables, and other food crops. But the major challenge that they have is poor access roads. In fact, the only major road that connects all of these 15 communities and linking up to the border with Rivers State is the Onitsha or Somala, Onitsha Atani or Somala Oguibele Road. And that road was done halfway during the time of former Governor Peter Obi. Ever since, it's been a little push and shove here and there. But incidentally, oil exploration has been going on in two communities of Oguibele and Oguaniocha, which makes Anambra an oil-producing state. So the state right now is earning revenue from the 13% derivation. But the roads are simply not there for the people to move out. In fact, the oil company had to create pipelines and collect to the side of the delta. So they actually take this oil across the river to the delta area. So I'm calling on government to also, at the subnational level, the state level, and the federal level, to synergize and ensure that this road is done. This is one major need of my constituent. The next would be the fact that as a coastal federal constituency, this seasonal flooding, affects my community so much so that bungalows, you only see the rooftops. It's as bad as that. And so I'll also be pushing for holding centers. Each year they ask people to go upland. Upland to where? There is no provision made for people to move out of the villages and come upland. But I'm sure that if we have 3 or 4 holding centers that could take especially men, women, and children during such period, because it has almost come to stay that each year we lose about 3-4 months to flooding. So you can imagine floods that cover rooftops. So nobody would actually be staying there, and it's a hard time getting to undertake that kind of movement. So if the government provides us with holding centers, large halls, take it up, and then people from the catchment areas could easily move there while the period lasts. So basically, those are 2 major issues that confront us. The oil exploration, which also devastates our environment. And so I'm calling on the government that whatever they are doing with regards to community participation in oil production, they should factor in the various communities of Ogbaru, because they are also all negatively impacted. My plans is to always be their voice, and that I've started, because if you don't say you are here, nobody would remember to say you are at that particular point. So given my own background as a journalist, I've offered to be the voice of the people, which I've been doing, even in my first incarnation as a legislator in 2011. I was publishing community newspapers. Already I've started a radio program for them, which has employed about 5 youths. So employment is key too for people in my area. The fishes are dried up because of the environmental degradation I told you about. So it's my remit to always look out for job opportunities for them, to assess the various grants and loans available to improve on their farming. And then we're also encouraging skills acquisition. In my first tenure, I did that, ran a semi-organized technical institution. I intend to go back to that.
Well, that's all we have for you on The Gavel this week. Thanks for watching. You can find more episodes on YouTube. I'm Terry Ikumi. Goodbye.